Hello, everyone. It is Felicia Bender, the practical numerologist, and this video is all about the number 5 pinnacle. So it's the 5 pinnacle in numerology, and more specifically in Pythagorean numerology. So first off, what I want to say is that if you don't know what your pinnacles are, if you stumbled on this and you're wondering what they are and what yours might be, please just take a moment and hold the video, pause it, go down to the description box. There is a video there that will go over what the pinnacles are, a description and an explanation of that. And then I will go through the calculation. So what I want to say also is that there is no hard, difficult calculation. There's no hard math in numerology. And yet this calculation is one that requires a little bit of concentration. So I would ask that you get out your piece of paper, get out your pen, sit down and have a moment to really go through it and go through it a couple times to make sure that you have the correct calculation. Again, it's not difficult. It's just a little bit more complex than the usual calculation that you might find in numerology. All right. So with that said, take a look. And yet otherwise, I'm making a wild assumption that you already know that you are either experiencing a 5 pinnacle right now, you have experienced one in the past and want to put a little bit of context around that, or that maybe you're looking at your 4 pinnacle cycles and seeing that one is coming up and you would like to have a little bit of a running start on what that might mean for you. All right. So that is what we're going to jump into right here, right now. So we're talking about the 5 pinnacles. As that reminder, we have 4 pinnacles within our pinnacle cycles. All right. And so the first pinnacle cycle takes place roughly for the first 30 years of your life. So again, do the math, do the calculation, because it's very specific for you. And yet just an overarching brushstroke, that those first 30 years. So that's a long time. Let's put it that way. So the first pinnacle has a lot of volume and a lot of impact. And also the fourth pinnacle, and depending on how long we live, is also going to have some impact there. All the pinnacles have impact. And yet what I'm saying in terms of length of time that you experience it, the first pinnacle and the fourth pinnacle are the longest periods of time. The second pinnacle and the third pinnacle are 2 9-year cycles back to back. All right. So if you are experiencing a number 5 pinnacle, when the 5 shows up, the 5 is always going to be about freedom, and it's going to be about change. So if we have to distill it down to 2 words, that's what I chose. And yet, of course, it's so much more vast and so much more rich and complex than that. And yet, if we look at it as a period of time, this is how it might show up. So if you have a 5 pinnacle for your first period cycle, this is a time of attainment. It is really a formative, obviously, period of time for you. It's from the time you're born and through, again, approximately, roughly 30 years. So lots going on, a lot of development, a lot of happenings, a lot of life milestones are happening in this first pinnacle. And so calling it the time of attainment is very fitting, I think. And that comes, I'm borrowing that with due reverence and thankfulness to master numerologist Hans Dekos. I love his work and I kind of see him as the Bible of Pythagorean numerology. And so thank you for allowing me to use that term, which he uses when he talks about pinnacles. So the first pinnacle, time of attainment. So this really is a period where you are either, and again, when we're working with these periods of time, we're going to have the full spectrum of experience. Full spectrum. So it's either a time where you're given a whole lot of freedom in your youth, right? Or instead, you feel restricted. You feel smothered, you feel contained, you feel defined by others, whether it's your family, whether it's your social or financial situation or circumstances that you find you're in, whether it's your religion or your culture, social. All of these elements and aspects play into this pinnacle cycle, where the lesson is in finding the ultimate levels of freedom, even through not even through, primarily through restricting circumstances, being able to break free, break through those, and find your levels of freedom in a healthy, in a productive, and ultimately focused way. Okay, that's the trick when it comes to the five. So, experience during this time is the catalyst to growth. And this is often a time where you are drawn to travel, where you are seeking adventure, or you can dabble in escape mechanisms. That can be a time where you're the wild one, you're, partying, party hardy. It could be where you're looking back and going, "Woo, yeah, I really, really played all that out. Really did I was always at the party." It could be that, or alternately, it could be a time where you feel very, very fearful, very restricted, very much where you are kind of in the back of your mind. You would love to feel, you would love to do things, you would love to experience life, you would love to feel a sense of freedom, and yet that is held away from your grasp. So it can be a very, very interesting time. Again, those first 30 years, you may find yourself as an exchange student. You may have a gift for languages. Maybe you know more than one language, or even more than two or three languages. Maybe you go and you try out different things, different careers, different elements of life. All of those things can really show up in a first cycle, pinnacle cycle, that is guided by that number five. So if you experience a five pinnacle in your second period cycle, in your second pinnacle cycle, I know the language gets a little wavy here. So your second pinnacle, if you experience a number five, it is a time of obligation, adaptability, and healthy self-discipline are really the cornerstones to this period. If you want to have any sense of accomplishment and success, if you don't want to wake up at the end of this 9-year cycle like it's one big hangover. Seriously. It's like, what just happened? I have no idea. Have nothing to show for it, really, except the collateral damage that I've left in my wake. So and yet it can be challenging in terms of focus, in terms of commitment. Self-indulgence can come into play, maybe a little bit more as an enticing aspect during this second pinnacle cycle. This is an amazing time to experience different cultures. Again, this is going to be a constant if you are in a five pinnacle, no matter where it's placed in your chart. So again, travel, different cultures, expanding your horizons on every level. It really is all about the experience. And the best thing about the five pinnacle is that it is a time of at the end of the day, at the end game, is that it is a catalyzing time for growth and change in your life. Oftentimes, people will start out a five pinnacle in one situation, place, identity in their life, and end it in an entirely different one, without knowing that that's coming down the pike. It wasn't even really ultimately the plan, and yet the universe takes over, and you get to go through the twists and the turns, and you get to explore again more dramatic changes during this period of time. So I actually personally experienced a five pinnacle in my life, and just as an example, I usually don't give truly all that many personal examples, and yet I think it's appropriate here, or apropos, which is I started out my 5 pinnacle at a place in my life, in my marriage, where I was really feeling the rumblings of needing some dramatic change, and I wanted to leave the marriage. I wanted to get a divorce. And guess when I got a divorce? At the end of that 9-year cycle. It took me 9 years because of the restrictions, the confinement that I felt that I had, which I did in reality. And I chose to stick with it and focus on it and make sure that it was the right choice. And what I mean by that is it was a place in my life where I had been a stay-at-home mother. I didn't have financial means to do it. I had 2 smaller children, and I knew it would be very traumatic and dramatic for them. All of these other elements, all these other aspects came into play that restricted me enough to take that amount of time to get out of that confining situation and find my level of freedom that I was seeking by going through that process. All right, so that's just one of many, many examples of how the 5 pinnacle might show up for you. And yet I did achieve that at the end of it, right? So, all right, let's move to the third one, third pinnacle cycle. If you have a 5 pinnacle, this is a time of foundation. This can be seen as a more mature period of time. Obviously, this is approximately in your 40s. A time of this foundation. It can be a been there, done that period where your first 2 pinnacles have set you up and given you the foundations, given you the wherewithal to make good choices, as we might say, in your 5 pinnacle that shows up as the third one. It can be where decisions about what you value, what stays and what goes, and how you want to stabilize your life might come into play during this time. Once again, it can be a time where you seek freedom from those confining situations, and you're also learning even more in a more mature way the productive use of freedom and how to extract from feelings of restriction. So this is a time where you can diligently create amazing levels of freedom in your life. The freedom of health comes from that self-discipline. Again, remember the 5 is freedom through self-discipline and the constructive use of freedom. So during this time, people often find themselves really galvanizing themselves around, taking care of their health and making sure they have that level of freedom. Financial freedom is often a very big deal during the third pinnacle. So it's really making sure that you're mapping that out. It can be a time of significant spiritual growth because the ultimate freedom, after all, is enlightenment, is this expanded consciousness. So if you have those proclivities, often this will come in even more intensely during a third pinnacle that is ruled by the number 5. It can be a time, again, where you leave a relationship, bring a relationship in, where you travel, where you explore, where you just change the game totally. Maybe you were a real estate agent and you quit that and you become a clothing designer. Maybe you, I don't know, I'm not even going to grasp at examples there, but you get the picture where you could really change the game in terms of your life and the direction that your life is taking. So then if we look at the fourth and final pinnacle, this is a time of culmination. I always really accentuate the idea that the first, second, and third pinnacles, this is very obvious, and yet I'm going to say it anyway, are the setup. They are the setup for the fourth and final. It's really valuable to look at those and to go, okay, what were the stepping stones that I needed to master, that I needed to engage with, that are going to inform me for my highest and best, to my the glory that can be my final years in life. And by final years, I mean it's an entirely other lifetime, that fourth and final pinnacle. Again, depending on how long we live, but usually it's going to be at least 30 years, if not longer. So once again, another lifetime. So you've got a lot a lot to learn and to expand into in this fourth pinnacle, this time of culmination. So if this is yours for the if yours is the number 5 for the fourth and final pinnacle, balance is really key during this period. It's a very fast-paced time with many changes, twists and turns. Travel can be a feature, and you can find yourself either kind of, rambling Rose. Uh, you can ramble around, or you can enjoy the zest that comes with this buoyant and freewheeling energy. So adventure awaits you in a 5 pinnacle. It's just a matter of, have you established your sense of foundation of your security, stability, so that you can enjoy this period of time? Are you open enough to this expansion? Are you curious? Are you, it's going to offer you many opportunities, and yet once again, it will offer the fear. It will offer some of those restrictions. It will offer you the availability to really step into those fears. What is it, Joseph Campbell, who says, and I'm going to loosely paraphrase, something like the room in which your fears reside is the room that you need to enter. And so it is a time where we can meet face to face. And yet I always, always, always find that it's very much like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, who's running around in the movie for what? How long? How long is that movie? Like three hours, 3.5 hours? Finally, at the end, she confronts the Wicked Witch and throws some water on her, and the Wicked Witch just melts, It's that sort of feeling. It's the thing that you have run from all your life often will come in to go, hi, how are you? You want to have a conversation? You want to talk about this? You want to do something about me? So those are the things that can come in a very scary way, but in a very positive way overall. All right, so I hope this was informative for you. Please do take a look in the notes below. There will be the links to all the other Pinnacle videos, as well as the introduction, so that you can make sure that you've done the calculation and understand the time frame that you're working with each Pinnacle. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching.